Hi, my name is Keturah. I'm an independent artist and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I was born January 11, 1997 in Miami. I feel like I grew up in two different worlds. Like, I got to experience so many things and I got to experience so many different type of people. I got to travel to a lot of places and see a lot of the world as a child. My father traveled a lot for his job and sometimes he took us with him. It was really fun. I remember when my parents found out I could sing. From that day forward, my mother made me sing for everybody. I just remember hating it. I hated it. I hated how she would always make me sing for people. But it actually helped me a lot with my confidence. So I really appreciate her for making me do it. I remember being a shy, just a really reserved child. I stayed to myself a lot. I didn't really care for friends. Even as a teenager, I remember my father coming into my room and trying to make me go out and make friends, and I would always just be like, no. I was always in my room just reading and writing and imagining this whole world that I created up for myself. Some of my best memories involve music. My father introduced me to a lot of older artists like the Bee Gees, New Edition, just a lot of like the 70s, 60s music. And my mother, she definitely had like a more 90s R&B vibe to her. I can remember traveling to Miami with her, and she would always get so happy as soon as we touched to Miami, and she would turn the radio up super fast and like, oh, we in Miami, baby. And it would always just be like some old 90s R&B song playing. She would just be so happy. I remember one time we were traveling and the Cha-Cha Slide came on. That's my grandma's favorite song. It's one of her favorite songs. And she literally made us pull over the side of the road just so we could do the Cha-Cha Slide. That's how important music is to people. And I always wanted to be a part of that. Like, I want that. I want to be a vessel that connects people together, that makes people happy. That's why I make music. I remember writing my first song. I think I was like 15, 14 years old. But I was like, yeah. Or is it only me that's ending? But don't go creeping out of my head, 'cause I need you. When I started writing the songs for 1111, I didn't even really know that I was making an album at first. It kind of just formed and took a life of its own almost. The pieces just started to fall together like a puzzle or like a work of art. Before I even realized it, the songs that was writing kind of formed like a story or a timeline. And I decided to, make an album. I had never made an album before. Like, I played around in the studio a couple times, but that was it. But for some reason, I thought in my head, like, I have to make these songs. I think the first song that I wrote was You, and then I wrote Dopamine. I was going through a lot of my life at that time, as most of the world was, because it was 2020 that I started writing this album. One day I was writing my birthday down, and I realized that it had 1111 in it. I got it in my head that I should just name my album that, because it's a piece of me, it's a part of me. It was very special to me. It's my first album, and so I named it after my birth month and day. I got inspired to write the song Dopamine because took took a really good look at the relationships in my life, including my own relationship, and I just started asking the questions as to why it just felt so toxic. I was once in a toxic relationship myself, and I thought it was very normal. For me, it seemed like there was a problem, like a disconnection there. And I just didn't understand why. I mean, I'm sure a lot of different races of people go through it, but for Black people especially, love is just such a taboo and strained topic. Me writing that song stemmed from a need to know an answer to an actual question. Why do the people that I love the most hurt me the most? Why are people who are supposed to be my family the ones who criticize and don't support me the most? Why is that? That just seemed like such a broken system. It didn't seem like something that was meant to be there. It seemed like it was something that was just handed to us. And I no longer wanted to accept that. We have been so utterly destroyed and broken as a people. And it stemmed from somewhere. It didn't just appear out of thin air. And I don't have to go into many examples because I'm sure anybody who's listening to me talk has witnessed some form of toxic love in their life. It doesn't matter what kind of love it is, who it came from, or who it was between. You've seen it. We don't even know how to love each other properly anymore. And we can get so conditioned and so brainwashed into thinking certain things are normal when they really aren't. It took me a very long time to realize that I wasn't really being raised by my parents. I was being raised by their parents. It was a system that was already set up and in place for me when I got here. And I know it's just a song, but it was just something inside of me that did no longer wanted to accept any kind of love. I wanted a pure love, a real love that came from a real place. I didn't want love with pain added to it. We learned certain things from a very young age that I'm just starting to realize is not normal. The way we treat each other is not normal. The way we communicate with each other, the way we communicate with our children, our friends, it's just not normal. And everybody expects you to just sit there and be complacent and say nothing and do nothing and just go along with it. I didn't even know who Krishan and Blueface was. But I know about their relationship. I know about their business. And to me, I just want to know, why is it always our people that's always being pushed in the forefront of toxicity? I'm not casting any stones at them. Because like I said, I myself used to be in a toxic relationship. I thought it was very normal to argue all the time. I thought that was normal in a relationship. That was taught to me. I didn't develop that on my own. My parents grew up in an era where they lacked affection and things. My mother grew up with 4 siblings, and that was in the 80s. They didn't have that affection from their mother. All they knew was violence and anger. And to be so young and surrounded by nothing but darkness, they had no choice but to shut down emotion. The person who is supposed to protect you, love you, nurture you, is the very person that is hurting you. How does a child come back from that? I think at some point you have to be traumatized by that. That trauma is then internalized and it just continues. We spend our childhood loving innocently and purely, and the majority of the people that we meet in our lives, including sometimes our parents, are very emotionally and verbally abusive towards us. And so I really think that creates it kind of blurs your vision of love, and you feel like love is supposed to be rough and mean and tough all the time, and that's just not the case. Back then during slavery, slaves were not allowed to show emotions. I really feel like there's a connection there. There's a reason why Black people specifically cannot connect to each other. We were sold off from each other. Mothers sold from daughters. Fathers sold from their families. Sisters and brothers separated. We never, ever were allowed to have an actual real connection with each other. And I really do feel like that is the reason why the Black community is just so divided. It's really divided more than it has ever been before. And I can't even say that it just stems from slavery, because even after slavery, we were so resilient and strong, and we actually managed to come back from that. But you know what we never really did manage to come back from? The drugs that the government released in the Black community in the 80s. That's something that I feel like we were never able to come back from. And I just feel like that was a very orchestrated plan. You know, when they do things, it's not just to affect that generation. It's to affect the generations coming up after that. They go for the long-term effects. I love my grandmother. I love her. I feel like she has a very beautiful spirit. I sometimes wonder who she would be if that never happened to her. I wonder who my mother would be if that never happened to her. I wonder who I would be if that never happened to her. What they didn't just affect one generation, it affected all of the generations after that. And I really haven't seen any progress after that. I love my mother to death, but I do sometimes feel like she was emotionally unavailable to me, you know? And for a long time I hated her for it, but I had to realize that didn't come from her. That came from her mother. People these days are just so disconnected from all the trauma and violence they see everywhere. Making the song was a way for me to try to connect back to myself. I grew up having to shrink myself and minimize who I was even if it made me uncomfortable. I felt like I had to do the same thing, just overextend myself and be available, even when I didn't feel like it. People really need to learn how to form healthy bonds. And until you have a bond with yourself and the Creator, you will never be able to connect to other people. So I wrote this song at a very isolated period in my life. Of course, it was during COVID, so everybody was stuck in the house, and it honestly was a very lonely experience. I think that it was weird to me how, during a time where you would think people would stick together, that was a time where people were the most divided ever. In my dreams, my life is so complete, but then I wake up empty. But don't go creeping out of my bed, 'cause it's obsolete, knowing you wait beside me. I'm so tired of feeling alone. At home, at home, at home. In my head, in my head, in my head. In my bed, in my bed, in my bed. Trying to please people all the time almost killed me. Trying to fix everything and be everything for everybody made me lose myself. I am the center of my world. You are the center of your world. The only thing we need to do is be kind and love one another. It could really make all the difference. Build a love with yourself and share that love with others. There is some serious healing that needs to take place. The way that we treat each other is not normal. The way that our parents treat us is not normal. Call your sister. She is depressed, and she probably needs you. And yes, people have falling outs, people get angry, but there is nothing that's so bad that you can't just call the person that you love and just say, I'm sorry. I admit that I was wrong. It doesn't matter what I did or who did it, why it happened. I miss you. I just want to fix this. I miss the bond that we had. Why? Why can't we do that while people are here? Why can't we do that to the people that we love? Why would we get so angry to the point that our love for each other just flies the window? And it's always the people closest to you. Always the people that you love. Life is so short, and in any moment it can be taken away from us. Let's just tell the people that we love them while we still have the chance to tell them. Let's just encourage somebody. It doesn't matter who it is, anybody. Just spread light and love. That's the message.
So it seems the world is at an end, or is it only me that's ending? But don't go creeping out of my head, 'cause I need your love, I need love. If I go creeping what you need.